The Chiefs just gave George Karlaftis a 4-year, $93 million contract extension with $62 million fully guaranteed. I'm Michael Darcy, he's Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, and in this video we are going to react to the massive deal the Chiefs just gave George Karlaftis. Josh, we just got done with a live stream on your channel, but I want you to tell the viewers what you think initially of this contract.
I think the Chiefs paid a good player great, maybe you could even say elite player money, and it seems as if everyone is running cover from what they said a week ago. Like, Michael, we discussed this on my live stream. I think if you had told people a week ago George Karlaftis $23 million per year, they'd been like, that seems a little rich for George Karlaftis. I agree. And now all of a sudden I see everyone saying, well, the market was rising and they had to do this. And it's like, did they really have to do this? Because in my mind, George Karlaftis, again, is a good player, but I've always stood by the fact that he's a number 2 defensive end at the very best. A lot of his production comes from feeding off the gravity that Chris Jones brings when he's in the lineup. Again, good player, complimentary piece, energy and effort guy. $23 million per year, I think that's where you lose me.
Well, I want to preface my statement by saying that I like George Karlaftis. I think he's a solid edge rusher.
We always have to preface our statements by saying that now.
The issue is the Chiefs gave a solid player very good money. Giving him $93 million over the next 4 seasons, that's a lot, ladies and gentlemen. He's got 24 and a half sacks during his first 3 seasons in Kansas City. They're basically giving him $4 million a sack. And so the fact that the Chiefs are okay with doing that when you still have to pay Trent McDuffie, that's what concerns me. Because the Chiefs just gave a number 2 edge rusher, number 1 edge rusher money. And if you just look, right now, he's the 10th highest paid edge rusher in football. He is not the 10th best edge rusher. So the Chiefs are overpaying for George Karlaftis. In fact, his market value, according to SpotTrack, is $22.2 million a season. His projected salary was like $66 million over 3 years. The Chiefs are giving him almost double that. And so I absolutely think it's fair to say the Chiefs overpaid for Karlaftis, but at the same time, I do like the player. I just don't like the contract.
Yeah, I mean, no matter how you slice or dice it, the Chiefs gave a good player great money. They gave George Karlaftis a lot of money. And again, I know what people are going to say. Josh, look where the cap's going. Players are going to start getting paid like this. And it's like, yeah, I mean, I get it to a degree. But this is now the second time in the last week where the Chiefs, I feel like, gave a player that's not, even really top 10. Well, I mean, Troy Smith is, I think, in the top. He's top 10-ish, right, as a right guard. But they gave They gave 2 players, that I think are very good, great to elite player money, and it's just not great optics, especially when you have someone like Trent McDuffie that, still needs to get paid. And Michael, you kind of talked about how these are the kind of contracts that, could kill a dynasty if you play things wrong. Not saying that it will, not saying this is doomsday, guys. I'm not saying the sky is falling, but, I just think no matter how you slice it or dice it, like, the Chiefs kind of overpaid for George Karlaftis a little bit here because, like you said, Michael, top 10 highest paid defensive end now, not a top 10 defensive end. Definitely nowhere near the top 10 when you look at his pass rush win rate statistics, and that's what I'm always going to point to because that really tells you how productive a pass rusher is. It's not always about sacks, and even in sacks, even when you look at the sacks, he's not a top 10 defensive end. He has double-digit sacks 1 time so far in his career. And I mean, he's been good, but, I just don't look at the stats and think $23 million per year. But the pass rush win rate is what I look at, and he's a bottom feeder in that category, in that statistic. And I pointed this out on my social media, but George Karlaftis and Mike Dana now, with George Karlaftis getting extended, they're paying those guys a combined over $30 million per year. Both of them are in the bottom third in the league among starters in pass rush win rate. That's just not going to get it done. I think, these guys benefit a lot from playing next to Chris Jones, but I'm just kind of sitting here wondering when the Chiefs are going to bring someone in that's going to help Chris Jones. Not saying that they don't, but...
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this on your live stream. If Chris Jones retired tomorrow, the Chiefs need to trade for a number one pass rusher, whether it's a defensive tackle or an edge rusher, because George Karlaftis is a great complementary piece to Chris Jones, and it's not vice versa. And so if Chris Jones, gets to the point in a couple of years where he just doesn't want to play anymore or his contract expires and decides to retire, the Chiefs have to be on the phone with some other team to get a true number one pass rusher to Kansas City. And that's why when I look at this contract, I love George Karlaftis. I love the motor. I love the energy that he brings.
Yeah.
I don't love that for $93 million over 4 years, but I would love it if it was like $16 or $17 million per year. I think the Chiefs overpaid, and I think that's okay to admit it, that you like George Karlaftis, but the Chiefs also overpaid. And if we just, look at this, I want to read this tweet from Soren Petro. The contract is a 4-year extension onto the back of the last 2 years of Karlaftis' current deal, means he's currently signed for 6 years and a total of $106 million, $62 million guaranteed for injury, with another $32 million in practical guaranteed money. So this is a deal that is going to keep him in Kansas City for the next 6 seasons. But Josh, again, I think that when you look at the numbers, in a couple years, he might not be paid like he is the 10th best edge rusher in football, but is he even a top 20? He's close. He's very close if he is. I don't know if he is.
From a sacks standpoint, I think, you can definitely make the argument. But when you're talking about a guy that has the capability, athletically speaking, and as a player to take over a game, to blow by someone. Michael, we talked about this on my live stream too, and I think this is a great way. This will give people perspective. Because my guy Adam Best over at Arrowhead Addict said, this guy helps Chris Jones. This is an investment into Chris Jones. And I said, I think Chris Jones helps him more than anything. And in fact, I think Chris Jones just got George Karlaftis paid, and that's what this is. But then someone else replied to that and said, the elite tackles don't really struggle with George Karlaftis. And it's hard to disagree. They don't. George Karlaftis isn't blowing by guys like Trent Williams on a consistent basis. He's not that type of player. He's not your high-end number one defensive end that, like you said, Michael, if Chris Jones had to go away for whatever reason, injury, retirement, whatever, George Karlaftis can't carry this pass rush by himself.
No. And I think that the Chiefs need to have a better plan if Chris Jones is out of the picture in a couple years, because you can't assume that George Karlaftis is going to continue to take that next step, and once Chris Jones retires, Karlaftis is not going to be the face of this pass rush. And if he is, the Chiefs' pass rush just isn't going to be very good, because right now they've got a lot of guys that aren't pulling their weight. Mike Dana is a solid player. He's a number 4, a number 3 at
Can
best.
I just come out and say it, Michael? The Chiefs' starting defensive ends and George Karlaftis and Mike Dana would have been second string at best for the Philadelphia Eagles last year. Just saying.
Yeah. They're also the best edge rush in football, or at least the best pass rush in football. And so I think but even if you just look at the Chiefs' pass rush, a couple years ago, they were towards the top of the league in sacks. I think they were like number 2. Last year, they were towards the bottom of the league in sacks. Mm-hmm. And so we better see, under this new George Karlaftis deal, a better pass rush. And it's not all on Karlaftis to bring the sack totals up, but you got to at least give me double digits now that you're getting paid $23 million a season.
Yeah, like your guest said on your most recent video before this one, if we're paying this much money for Karlaftis, I better see consistent double-digit sacks.
That has to be the expectation. Like, with more money comes more expectations. The Chiefs just gave him all that money. We better see a better Karlaftis. And I think that he'd be the first to tell you that that should be the case. Because, not to compare this to, the Frank Clark situation, but the Chiefs gave Frank Clark a ton of money, and he ended up being, for the most part, in the regular season, a dud. And I don't think that George Karlaftis is going to be Frank Clark.
No.
But it does scare me a little bit when you do give a player like an edge rusher so much money. And Frank Clark's track history of being a high-end defensive end was higher than Karlaftis's. Like, if you want to just talk about a player that, at face value deserves a massive extension, Karlaftis probably wouldn't get the edge over Clark.
Well, when the Chiefs paid Frank Clark, he was coming off a 14-sack season. He was an all-pro caliber player coming off that year. Karlaftis hasn't even sniffed that kind of season yet.
Is he a Pro Bowler? I don't think he is.
I would have to go back and look, to be honest with you.
And not that the Pro Bowl really make or break, a contract, but like pretty much anyone can get into the Pro Bowl if you're a popular name. And so that might be something to watch. Like, especially in a offseason where you already made Trey Smith the highest paid, guard in the NFL, like NFL history. The fact that you did that and George Karlaftis' deal got done so quickly, it kind of makes me think that there really wasn't much negotiating. The Chiefs went to him and said, hey, we want you, we'll give you this. And Karlaftis was like, wow, you're going to give me all that money considering that I've really only given you, 24 and a half sacks over 3 seasons? I'll take that.
Yeah. I mean, how could you not?
If it ends up working out like he kind of just stays the same player, he doesn't really make much of an improvement, he kind of just backed the Brinks truck up to the Chiefs front office and took a bunch of money.
Yeah, and obviously the Chiefs give him this deal because they think he's going to improve, right? But if he kind of remains the same player, like over the next 2 to 3 years, if we're just kind of seeing 8 sacks, 9 sacks, 7 sacks, it's not bad, but it will be considered an overall disappointment when you look at the amount of money that they just paid him.
And again, guys, both Josh and I like George Karlaftis. We just don't like the contract. And that actually begs the question, what do you guys think of the George Karlaftis extension? Do you think the Chiefs overpaid? Do you think that George Karlaftis is being paid fairly? And do you think they get a deal done with Trent McDuffie this offseason, considering they already paid Trey Smith and they just paid George Karlaftis? It might be tough. But Josh, I think that's all the time we have in this video. Do you have anything else you want to add about this extension?
No, I think that's it, but I will be curious to see what other people in the comments say. I definitely want to hear your guys' thoughts because I'm real curious how many people agree with us on this one.
We might get flamed, and that's honestly something that I'm no stranger to on this channel, but
yeah.
I think that, again, we don't hate the player, but something that I said on your channel, it might not be Trent McDuffie, but there is going to come a time where the Chiefs are going to be handicapped by these contracts, and they're not going to be able to extend an Xavier Worthy or a Rashee Rice. And then, where are all the Chiefs fans going to be like, you know what, paying George Karlaftis all that money or paying Trey Smith might not have been the smartest decision. And so this is going to be a signing that might take a couple years to fully understand which guys, they decided to take. I guess they paid George Karlaftis instead of paying this guy. It might take a while to find out who, but I think there might be ramifications due to this contract. So, Josh, my final question for you is, where can the people find your stuff?
You can find me here on YouTube. Channel name is Show Me Football. Michael and I just recorded something on this exact topic right before this, so definitely head over to my channel, check that out. We went a lot more in depth on a couple other things there, but yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at ShowMeFB and check out my work on ShowMeFootball.com.
And guys, all that stuff will be linked in the description of this video. Hit that like button, subscribe for more Daily Chiefs content. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching this video, and as always, go Chiefs.